The Oregon Ducks were supposed to be in the college football semifinals in the playoffs. Instead, Penn State and Ohio State will carry the Big Ten's water moving forward. So what happened? And what's next for Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks football program? I'll tell you, Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button down below while you're watching. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We're going to take one last peek at the Ducks post-mortem here and figure it out moving forward before we get into the college football semis. Well, the latest on Penn State as they're getting ready for their Orange Bowl, odds makers, injuries, all that stuff right here, all under one roof. And we'll have our Tuesday tweets, all that coming up. But first, one other look at Dan Lanning. They were supposed to be here, the Ducks. They were supposed to make a run for a national championship. And they had everything going their way. They entered a new conference. They immediately served notice that they were to be dealt with. And they came into 2024 loaded with all three phases of the game taken care of. Sure, they lost highly accurate quarterback Bo Nix to the NFL. By the way, nice job by him this year with the Broncos, getting them into the playoffs. But they replaced him with a Heisman finalist in Dillon Gabriel, so no loss there. It's hard to nitpick an undefeated season, but the early concern was that they were winning, remember, but they weren't winning by enough. They weren't blowing teams out. Specifically, they weren't covering point spreads. You remember the conversations. Everybody was having them, so were we. But I will also point out that we all said the same thing about Michigan in 2023. That was during Jim Harbaugh and J.J. McCarthy's undefeated run to a national championship. It just goes with the territory. There's always something to look at there. So, look, going back at the Oregon Ducks, sure, there was, excuse me, there was a 3-point win versus future playoff team Boise State. There was the tight first half against rival Oregon State. Before the Ducks managed to get a 35-point win. Bottom line was the Ducks kept winning football games and winning and winning. And look, I know that we're always told by coaches and players, take things one game at a time, never get caught looking too far ahead. But that's what fans and media do. We do it all the time. Each of the Ducks' first 5 games, they were a gauge. They were a countdown to that October 12th game against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Sure, that game turned out to be a 1-point squeaker that went down to the wire, but the Ducks won the game. And, you know, it was their belief that, a lot of people's belief that those two would meet again, whether it be in a Big Ten championship game or college football playoff game, or maybe both. At the time, that's what we were thinking. Now, while Penn State proudly got in the way of Ohio State in that Big Ten title game, the rematch between the Ducks and the Buckeyes did happen. Rose Bowl, January 1st. You know the story. It was not pretty. It wasn't anything like that earlier October meeting. So, in fact, it was embarrassingly over with about 10 minutes to go in the second quarter. Ohio State came out on fire. The Ducks were flat as a pancake. How can that be? I mean, these teams were even in October. We can start with coaching. Now, you everydayers on this podcast know that we're fans of Dan Lanning and the Ducks, and so let's not take this honest assessment the wrong way. But look, just like Lanning gets credit for doing the better coaching job in October and stealing those extra precious few seconds by knowing the rules better than anybody else, Ryan Day had motivation from the Michigan loss, and he has since had his team playing at the next level. Plus, they had momentum coming off their huge win against Tennessee. And, you know, he got a win in January and started rolling. Meanwhile, the Ducks, they had 3 weeks off. They did not answer Ohio State's intensity from the opening kickoff of the Rose Bowl. And you can split the blame if you want. You can say the Ducks were rusty from the layoff. But again, that comes down to coaching and overcoming and meeting Ohio State at that moment. And that's where the Ducks fell short the second time around against the Ohio State Buckeyes. So you think about it, the perfect storm was going against the Ducks at this point. Ohio State was red hot. They were in midseason form, and the Ducks were flat from too much time off. That was part of it. It should be noted that all four teams with the extra week, the bye week, the better seeded teams in the college football playoffs, not one of them won. They all lost. There's something to be said about this. So we can also talk about how the Ducks were hurt by having the toughest draw in the playoffs. Typically, the undefeated number one seed would have the easiest path to championship. There are two ways to look at this year's seeding. Number one, ultimately, you're going to have to, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. You got to beat them sometime, whether it's early or later on in the tournament. And you got to beat a team like Ohio State or Ohio State to win a national championship. Championships are hard. Number two, on the other hand, perhaps an easier opening round game would have allowed the Ducks to chisel off a lot of that rust from being off for over 3 weeks and then get some momentum going into a second playoff game and then playing at their level that they're capable of doing. I think that's a valid argument. But, once a team gets on a roll, anything can happen. Look no further than Ohio State right now, who finished third in the Big Ten. But right now, they look like the best team in the country. It's a fair argument for Duck fans to make. Whether the bracket draw was tough or the bye week hurt, Dan Lanning and the Ducks, they better get used to it. This program is rolling, and a lot of us expect them to be in similar positions, playing important games in January, moving forward year in and year out. That's a credit to Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks and where they are right now. They just happen to fall short this particular year. Speaking of moving forward, of course, looking ahead to 2025 already, because that's what we do. The Ducks will be without Dillon Gabriel, Tez Johnson, Jordan Birch, Jeffrey Bassett, just to name a few. And they'll all be playing on Sundays next year in the NFL. And while everything is subject to change via the transfer portal now or in the spring, athletic quarterback Dante Moore, who transferred into the program, into Oregon from UCLA, at the same time that Gabriel came in, but he's got more eligibility. He knew he'd have to wait. I thought he showed some promise with Chip Kelly when he was at UCLA for his freshman season. And guys like Mateo Ugalele at the defensive line, he'll be back, 12 and a half career sacks, 2 years of eligibility. He's going to be the main guy now, and I would watch for improvement there. But the larger point is that Dan Lanning's program is rolling in all phases right now. Recruiting, got top 5 class coming in, class of 2025. By the way, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon. Mention them all in the same breath. They're recruiting at that level. Good job. There's the transfer portal. Oregon is a destination landing spot now for kids to showcase their talent. Talk about name, image, and likeness. One word for you, Nike. They're good. They're rolling. Developmental. Lanning has been at Oregon long enough to show that he can coach and develop players. And, loyalty. Like, Lanning didn't jump to Alabama when Nick Saban retired. He could have. He could have been the first guy chosen. And so he didn't take that. He said he loved it at Oregon. So that probably means there isn't a job in the country that can lure him from Eugene right now if everything else above him and administration and all that at the university stays the same. Plus, there's winning. Everybody wants to be a part of a winning culture. That's going on at Oregon. And while Lanning and the Ducks, they did come up short this year. And, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. They're going to be at the top of college football, and they're going to remain in the upper elite echelon of college football for some time. No question about it. Ducks fans, I would love to hear from you on this. You guys have been great on the comments. Probably get more Ducks comments than anybody on YouTube. Hit us up. What's your postmortem? What's your autopsy on this program and what just happened? I know it's got to hurt if you're a Ducks fan watching Penn State and Ohio State continue on without the Ducks or instead of the Ducks here in the college football playoffs. But that's where we're at right now. And by the way, a programming note, don't forget, in addition to our regularly scheduled Lockdown Big Ten podcast this week, we will go live here on our YouTube channel immediately following both semifinal games for immediate reaction and analysis, plus your comments and your reaction as well. So that's both Thursday night and Friday night. Both games will end around 10:45-ish Eastern. We'll come on right after the final whistle. So mark your calendars on your phones and devices and join us around 10:45, 11 o'clock-ish Eastern time. That's around 8 o'clock Pacific for a live edition of Locked On Big Ten as we wind down this very exciting week. Also, be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And I always encourage you to share, like, and follow Locked On Big Ten as well. It really helps us out. We always appreciate that. Don't forget to also check out our website, talkbig10.com. You see it on the crawl if you're watching on video. That's where all of our podcasts go. Plus, you can get your own school merchandise there while you're there from each school around the Big Ten. That's talkbig10.com. All right, some other things I want to get into here. A lot of the national talking heads, they are not saying nice things about Penn State against Notre Dame. Urban Meyer, Paul Finebaum. Of course not. He hates the Big Ten. We'll get into all that. We'll have injury updates, latest news on Penn State, and our Tuesday tweets. That is all coming up right here on another edition of Locked On Big Ten. Let me tell you about Game Time, because if you want to go to any sporting events, even non-sporting events, anything that requires a ticket, concert, all that kind of comedy show, get the Game Time app, and you can get tickets easy breezy. You want to attend one of these semifinals? You want to attend the national championship? It'll be an incredible experience for you. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier, and it filters out all the fluff and to show you only incredible deals and great seats, so you don't have to waste your time going through thousands of tickets. So it makes it very easy. They have you can see the view. There's a picture of the view of the seat of the ticket you're about to buy, plus on-time ticket delivery, the lowest price guarantee, complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Thank you. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And check out our website, talkbig10.com. Former Buckeyes coach and, also Notre Dame wide receivers coach once upon a time, Urban Meyer, who's now an analyst for Fox Sports for college football. He says that if Notre Dame keeps playing the way that they are right now, they're going to beat Penn State. Notre Dame, by the way, is a 2-point favorite for you that follow the old Vegas thing. Meyer says it's a pick 'em in his mind, but he likes the way the Irish are playing, and he likes them to win and head to the national championship. Then there's SEC shill Paul Finebaum, probably still upset that Georgia didn't advance in the playoffs. So he's taking the Fighting Irish over Penn State as well. He says he can't get excited about Penn State's home win versus SMU or the win over Boise State. He's just not impressed. Okay. If that's his reason, that's his reason. When Notre Dame plays Penn State, they will be without Cooper Flanagan, who injured his foot in the Sugar Bowl win over Georgia. Is not really a big part of their passing game, but he was a big part of their blocking schemes. Good blocker. And they'll notice his absence there because Penn State's defensive front is so good, and he's going to be out the rest of the postseason. However, running back Jeremiah Love and defensive tackle Howard cross the third. They should be good to go for the Fighting Irish. Meanwhile, all Penn State eyes are on pass rusher Abdul Carter. We talked about him in yesterday's podcast. He hurt his arm against Boise State. He did not return to that game. As we, again, reported yesterday, James Franklin is being a bit coy about his availability. It's what he does. It's what Franklin does. He don't want to give too much information out. But things seem to be trending toward him suiting up. So that would be good news for Penn State. If he cannot go, they do have fifth-year senior Amin Vanover, who could step in. Other injury updates: safety Jalen Reed, defensive end Danny Dennis Sutton. They were both banged up in that Boise State game. They've been practicing, so all trending well for Penn State there. Also, the Nittany Lions have a lot of their early enrollees, the early high school kids from the class of 2025 that are graduating early and getting a head start on this winter semester at Penn State. They've been practicing with the team. They all wear the number 00 with their name on the back. And they don't get into all the practice, but they're allowed to practice with the team for any team that has an early enrollee assignee. They're doing drills and all that stuff, not in the main bulk part of the practice where the team's getting ready for the playoff game, but they're there kind of getting their feet wet with the system and all that stuff. Penn State's travel day is today, Tuesday. Heading on down to Miami for the Orange Bowl. So we'll keep an eye on that. We're looking forward to that game. Don't forget our live podcast as soon as that game is over. Michigan is getting another running back. Remember Alabama running back Justice Haynes? Well, he signed with the Wolverines. He was in the portal, and he was one of the most sought-after running backs out there. And he was the Crimson Tide's third leading rusher this season, scored 7 touchdowns. And he was one of the, if not the top running back in the portal. South Carolina, Ole Miss, basically SEC schools in the Deep South got beat out by Michigan here. They out recruited them for the kid. All running backs know that if you play for Sharon Moore at Michigan, you're going to get used a lot. This isn't like, hey, there's a big passing offense. Maybe you get a few touches. No, you're a big part of the offense if you're at Michigan and you're a running back. This is a great place for running backs to go. I mean, just look at Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, Khalil Mullings. So I'm sure that played into his decision. Meanwhile, Indiana basketball coach Mike Woodson gave an update on Malik Reneau. Malik Reneau injured his knee a couple of games ago against Rutgers, missed the road win over Penn State over the weekend. Woody said that Reneau, he didn't tear anything, so that's good. And he didn't suffer any structural damage. But he's going to be out a while. And Woodson would not offer any kind of timeline. He said Reneau's return would be up to the medical staff, and he is the Hoosiers' leading scorer at 14 points per game. So we'll keep an eye on that. Not great news, but, it could have been worse for the Indiana Hoosiers. Got some hoops Tuesday night around the Big Ten. Nebraska is at Iowa. Doubleheader on Peacock. That's 8 p.m. Eastern on Peacock, 5 o'clock Pacific, followed by Michigan at 15th ranked UCLA, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. Again, those are in Peacock, so you have to stream that. Got women's action tonight. Number 1 UCLA at Purdue, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Big Ten Network. They have a doubleheader because that's followed by Wisconsin and Washington on the Big Ten Network. Love to hear your comments. Get them going there on YouTube as well. Coming up next, a round of Tuesday tweets. Got some phenomenal ones here. That's coming up next right here on Locked On Big Ten. Watching games is fun. Watching games while you got something going with FanDuel is even better. That's right. From upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $200 of bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 of bonus bets. Win or lose, the FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets and same-game parlays, all that stuff right there. So visit the website, and you can share betting lines around the team or the league that you follow. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. Get started with $200 of bonus bets. That's at FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, it is time for Tuesday tweets. Let's put them on the board. If you're audio only, I'll describe them to you as best I can. With the visual part. And this one I've been saving. We missed out because of the holidays and all that stuff. So, excuse me, got up. I'm playing hurt today. Got a little bit of a cold and got a little sore throat. But we're good. We're fighting through it. This is our Jordan game. This is from at Darren Rovell. It is it's a picture above the stealth bomber flyover over the Rose Bowl with the fireworks going on down below. And kickoff moments away, an American flag, stealth bomber. One of the coolest pictures I have ever seen. If you are on audio only, this would be one that'd be worth dialing up to take a visual look at. Or go to our Twitter or X page at Talk Big Ten. I have it posted there. That's where I pull these from after I retweet them. I think this is one of the coolest pictures I've ever seen in sport. Again, it's above the stealth flyover at Pasadena at the Rose Bowl. Phenomenal. By the way, this is from the Penn State's last game. Even the mascot has to go through security. That's hilarious. That is absolutely. That's from the Fiesta Bowl. Down in the bowels of the stadium, getting the wand. All right, that's funny. Meanwhile, here is the announcement from Tez Johnson from at Duck Zone 503. Oregon star wide receiver Tez Johnson officially declaring for the NFL draft. He was part of our conversation a moment ago that he will definitely be playing on Sundays. He'll go pretty high He will go pretty high. He's a great receiver and punt returner as well. Here's from at the Scarlet podcast. It said on this, it's a picture of Will Howard with the Ohio State logo. He says he is just 2 games away from leading the Buckeyes to a national championship. It was on this day last year that he committed to Ohio State. You see the date on there, January 5th. So, yeah, how much has happened in a year with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Here is a picture from at Samuel King. It is a picture. Remember, Zach Edey's not at Purdue anymore. This is Purdue basketball practice. Purdue 7'4" freshman center Daniel Jacobson out there just casually draining 3-pointers. For those of us in the Big Ten that were tired of Zach Edey's greatness, pounding our teams in the paint night in and night out, the thought of a 7'4" 3-point shooter should send shivers down everybody's back. Here's from at College Football on Fox. Which quarterback will have the biggest game in the college football semifinals? It's a picture of Notre Dame's Riley Leonard, Texas's Quinn Ewers, Penn State's Drew Aller, and Ohio State's Will Howard. I'll tell you right now, as far as a rounded quarterback game, I would go, I think, almost in reverse order from right to left. I go Will Howard and then Drew Aller, who's just been steady and efficient. Quinn Ewers, a little up and down to his game. And then Riley Leonard, better runner than passer, but not bad. Look, man, they're in the Final Four. He's done a great job. Meanwhile, here is at Penn State head football coach James Franklin. This is a video of him back in 2019. Hasn't changed a bit. Says, I don't usually talk about this publicly, but my goal is to be the first African-American football coach to win a national championship. And look, either he or Marcus Freeman are going to go to the national championship game, the winner of that Penn State Notre Dame game. So getting close, making history. Here's from at Penn State football. It is by the way, hashtag we are in college football playoff. Overhead shot of Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, where the Orange Bowl will be. You can see the Penn State lettering in the end zone is ready to go. Very cool shot. Meanwhile, did you catch this? This is from IU Barstool. This is the picture on the left is, and I thought this when I was watching it, Michael Penix, who's been recently named the starter the last 3 games of the season for the Falcons, diving with the ball in his left hand for the pylon to score a touchdown. How many of you remembered before he was at Washington when he was at Indiana during the COVID 2020 year, where Indiana, led by head coach Tom Allen and quarterback Michael Penix Jr., this is on a 2-point conversion against Penn State, reached out and just tapped that pylon for the 2 points and the Hoosier win. It was a do or die play. Very similar plays, 5 years apart, 4 years apart. So, yeah, I thought it. And I'm glad somebody put that together. IU Barstool putting that together. Give them a shout out for that. All right, this is a picture of somewhere in the northern Midwest. Houses, trees, no leaves, a little bit of a fire, beer drinking, and watching kids play ice hockey on a frozen over pond in the middle of winter. This is from Sebastian. Something the SEC cannot even fathom. Yeah, you can't do this down in the South. You can't play on a frozen pond and play a little pickup hockey in the backyard. Nope. And this is from college basketball on Fox. Iowa honored former head coach Lisa Bluter, who retired at the end of last year with all of her success and Caitlin Clark and all that. And they honored her at halftime. Special celebration for her. And that's very cool. Very cool to see. All right, there you have it. Those are our Tuesday tweets. What'd you think? Leave anything out? Send me something on Twitter. You can reach out many ways to this podcast on Twitter or X at Talk Big Ten. Don't forget, we have our website, Talk Big Ten, at talkbig10.com, number 10, where our podcasts and merchandise go. You can go check that out. If you're on video, you can see the crawl right now. And also, don't forget our live broadcasts, our live podcasts here on our YouTube Locked On Big Ten channel, right after the Penn State game in the Orange Bowl and right after the Ohio, that's on Thursday, and right after the Ohio State Cotton Bowl on Friday night, going live twice this week. So don't forget the website, talkbig10.com. Be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available. Thanks for checking us out. Can't wait to talk to you tomorrow. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.